And we are back. We are live. We are in San Francisco at the Moscone Center, and we are hanging out at Channel 9. Seth has left. He's gone, and I've taken over the show, and I'm thrilled to be here. And we've got some very cool friends to talk about a pretty exciting announcement that happened this morning. To my direct right here, we have Dustin from Canonical. He's got his Ubuntu shirt on, much respect, and a beautiful beard that I aspire to have one day. So he's our partner from Canonical and Ubuntu. And then we've got Russ Alexander, and you were the PM?
The PM for Bash on Windows.
Yes, for the project.
Yes.
And then to your right, we've got Ben, and were you a dev?
I'm a developer on the team, yeah.
So they let a developer out to speak to people.
I snuck here, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Also a fine-looking beard. And we saw a lot of excitement around the announcement today. Everyone was totally jacked about this, right? They're like, yes. But then the questions began. A lot of speculation and a lot of, I felt, either minimizing it, like, oh, it's just Cygwin again, or a lot of like, oh, clearly it's a virtual machine. And correct me if I'm wrong, the way that I like to explain it in elevators, I'm always in elevators for some reason, then you have about 2 floors to explain it to someone. They go, what's the deal? I say, you've got this slider bar with VMs over here, and you've got Cygwin, which is portable C code compiled as Win32 binaries. Bash on Ubuntu on Windows sits right there in the sweet spot in the middle, where it's not a full virtual machine, it's not the Linux kernel, it's the user mode ELF binaries, but it's not running in Win32 process space. And then the elevator door opens, and then they say, I have no idea what that means.
That is an excellent elevator pitch for it. Really, this does fit very nicely between the 2 existing projects. The thing that we're really trying to bring for this is people who are familiar with the Bash shell, people who are familiar with the Linux command line, give them a nice, friendly environment in a way that just works. They can run the binaries, they can go out there, they have the commands, they have access to what's inside of Windows, and they can just play. So that's exactly what it is that we're trying to do.
Okay. And what do you provide? You are providing the binaries that sit on top of the thing that runs the thing.
Absolutely. So we provide the root file system, Ubuntu itself, that provides the binaries that actually runs. What's beautiful about that is that it's the exact same root file system, the same root tarball, identical bit for bit, checksum for checksum, as Ubuntu in Azure or any other public cloud. On a bare metal machine or a virtual machine if you install Ubuntu, or if you're running Ubuntu in a Docker container, a LXD container, any other container, it's the same tarball that is the root file system for Ubuntu itself, user space.
The user space. So it's
kernel.
nothing's modified. It's just simply Ubuntu minus the kernel.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And boot too. You might want to talk at some point about the init process. But
Right, because you're booting differently again.
Right.
So when I go now to get Ubuntu, I go and I download the ISO, and then I take my virtual machine, whether it be Hyper-V or VirtualBox, and I attach to that. This isn't an ISO that's getting downloaded.
No.
And when I think of virtual machines, there's a certain amount of weight, a little bit of gravitas that is required with a virtual machine, 30 gigs of space, and it's things, file systems.
Segment your address space.
Right, a segmented address space, and it's, you're lying to the machine, and it's a whole blue pill, red pill thing. Is this virtualization?
This is not virtualization. There are no VMs in the making of this. Essentially what we're doing is we are running the Ubuntu user mode binaries on top of essentially the NT kernel. So we have a kernel driver in there, which is the Windows, what is it? The Windows subsystem for Linux, thank you.
WSL?
The WSL, yes, the WSL. The Windows subsystem for Linux, which essentially takes in the system calls that come out of the Linux user mode.
Colloquially, syscalls.
The syscalls, yes.
Okay.
It takes the syscalls, translates them over, and processes them inside the NT kernel. So at that particular point in time, if anything comes in, Windows, but Ubuntu believes that it is running on a native Linux kernel at that point because we're translating everything over.
Okay. So if I go to my machine and I type bash and I type VI, and then I go to Task Manager in Windows, what do I see? Do I see bash or do I see VI?
You'll see a process in there, and it'll be they're lightweight processes. So some of the hooks that NT gets the process name and things like that aren't there.
Okay, so some of my traditional tools, my process explorers, may not yet be able to see these things
Right.
the same
Not yet.
way.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But they'll show up in Task Manager. I think they are a system process, or they'll show up as something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then when we say it's not a virtual machine, one of the things I struggle with a lot when I'm trying to get my Ubuntu stuff set up for dev mode is opening ports and forwarding things. And the old day, like, where exactly is localhost anywhere? If I go and make an app, maybe I run Redis or I run Rails or something, and I go localhost port 5000, are we sharing port space?
We are sharing port space, so everything is running off a local host. It does not have a separate IP address or anything along those lines, which means it is beholden to the same Windows firewall rules that Windows is beholden to. You are running on the same networking stack, so everything that you would expect to just kind of work in Windows works the same way here. So-
Okay, so if I have something open on port 85
Yep.
in Ubuntu, and then someone else tries to open it, it's like, sorry, hey, that was handled. That's
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
Are there any compatibility things to worry about? Like, unless I'm writing kernel drivers, like, are things going to behave differently?
So,
The goal is no.
yeah,
So
the goal is
I want to
no,
hear that.
but
The goal is no.
Yeah,
the goal
in this
is no.
case, with this release, it's a kind of a developer release.
we are definitely inside of a beta release.
Okay,
This
call it a
is-
beta. It's okay to call it a beta?
Yeah,
We're officially calling it a beta right now.
Alrighty.
It is definitely okay to call it a beta. It is a beta release. Not everything will work right out the gate. We know this, we expect this. One of the things that we're really looking forward to is user feedback. We're going to have a user voice page up where people can go over, you can vote on what you want to see next, what you want to see us working on, what the priorities are, all that other goodness. We're highly looking forward to getting feedback from what people want to see. And yeah, if I say go play, tell us what works, tell us what doesn't work.
And someone said, and there's a lot of questions that are going on Twitter right now, and we'll do some questions that we have over here, but we're saying things like, well, does this mean I have to install Git twice now? I have to install Python twice now? And I would propose that rather than phrasing it like that and looking at it in a negative way, well, it's like, well, you're going to get the Windows version of Python, and do your testing there, and then you do your Ubuntu version,
If you would like to use the Ubuntu version,
if
please.
you want to use that.
all about choice.
It's all about choice.
It is exactly. It is all about choice.
Very cool. Let's take a look at some of the questions that are coming in here. So here's an interesting one because we are in a kind of an unusual kind of, I imagine almost as a zipper as these two operating systems come together and there's user mode, kernel mode, trying to deal with those things. Does Bash on Windows still have the max path limitations? Where does this live on disk? Do they share file system or not?
Yeah, well,
Davis?
they share a
Yeah,
file system.
definitely.
Yeah, MaxPath is an interesting one. Maybe Russ, you can take that one.
So yeah, MaxPath is definitely an interesting thing. When you are inside the Ubuntu file system and you're playing inside of Ubuntu, the MaxPath issue will behave a little funny if you then go to the Windows file system and start playing inside of Explorer. It will let you do it. I have done this myself. I have played with it. But when you start breaking out, that's one of the places where the two worlds don't quite align just yet.
Okay.
So you'll see a little bit of a tear there.
So let me see if I can paraphrase and you tell me if I'm correct.
Please,
Because I
yes.
want to make sure that if I understand it, then maybe they'll understand it.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I go CD tilde,
Tilde, yeah.
Tilde, yeah.
and I go and make a dev folder, and I go and git clone something or do an npm install, and I get a big deep node modules, I'll probably be fine because I'm running in the Ubuntu file system.
Right, correct.
But if I go to /mount/c/dev, now I've gone through the wormhole, and now I am sharing the NTFS file system.
Things get a little funny there. The other thing, and we will probably actually let you create that within the Bash shell, but when you go out and
Because
actually...
the file system
because the
supports
file
it,
system,
but
yes.
Explorer doesn't yet.
But when you go out and open up Explorer, you're going to get a little awkwardness. So,
Right.
So just be careful that there might be a little funniness going on there.
Okay,
but
so
please feel
great
free.
question there. Looks like Kevin Gallo says in the next 2 weeks or so we'll see a flight for the insiders. Is that
Yeah,
true?
so that's actually a pretty important point. We are not in the current insider flight that's going out now. We expect that we should be out where people can play with us within the next 2 weeks. So,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Real bits that people are going to
Real
use.
bits people can play with. Go try it. And like I said, tell us what you think.
And speaking of versions, what is the version that we get when we try this out?
Today it's Ubuntu 14.04.
14.04.
LTS.
Trusty.
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 We're moving to 16.04, which is Xennial. Ubuntu releases Xennial in about 3 weeks from now.
So how does that work? Does that mean that people who typed Bash at one time get 14.04, and then in a couple of months I'm going to type Bash and get 16.04?
We're still working on that particular upgrade. We're working on Xennial right now. We're playing with it internally. We're trying to make sure that it works before we actually push it out. But it is definitely something that's high up on our list.
So then that brings the question, is the intent that I would apt-get upgrade?
You certainly can. So app works as you would expect app to work in any other Ubuntu system. Early adopters can take their 14.04 and upgrade to 16.04 with an apt upgrade. By the time that this is adopted en masse, I think we all hope that we have users on 1604. I think one of the driving motivations here is, what Ubuntu brings to open source is velocity and choice, and that velocity means that we want the latest and greatest bits in the hands of the most Windows users as possible.
Shiny. We'll do a demo in a second, but we'll bang through a couple of these questions here.
Please.
Does it mean that I can run all kinds of command line Linux apps? Nick has this question on Windows now. I can say personally that I've apt-get installed VI, and I've apt-get installed Redis from an alternate app feed. I've run all the command line stuff I usually run, VI, Emacs.
Yeah, so
I haven't been able to do Tmux yet, though.
Tmux is not working at this point.
Okay.
So we have to focus on scenarios here. There's a lot of surface area for Linux. We know that we can't get it all done initially. We're really focusing very heavily on the scenarios of just running the bash shell, making sure that all the command lines are working, making sure that you have a nice stable environment.
Right.
After that, there's a bunch of things that you can go out there and you can play with. Some, like I said, some work, some doesn't. Everything that you mentioned does work. I've run a lot of those myself.
Sure.
We know things like Tmux does not work. I don't believe that I don't believe that Top actually works.
No, Top does not work, or HTOP.
Or HTOP on the release that's going to be going out first. We will be making that work. Now, we are also only working on command lines tools. I think it's pretty important to say that we're not actually bringing up any sort of GUIs or anything like that.
Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go and start running graphical, because it's not about that scenario. Because for me, it's about the developer.
This is all about the developer.
And as I said in my blog, when I go to a web page and I see web developer tools and I see a $sign and some instructions, in the past I kind of go, I guess I'm not really part of that club.
Yes.
Now I am.
Now you
I
are.
can do those things. All right. Is process.fork supported? What is the fork situation in this?
Do we talk about forks?
Yeah, sure. So fork is, our processes are they're minimal processes. So they're a new concept that we've invented, and NT kind of leaves them alone. Like their address space is not.
So there's no vi.exe in the tree in the classical Windows sense, in the heavyweight sense of processing.
Right.
It is really a Linux process.
Right.
Really
So I'll kind of walk through fork and explain what happens. Is the user mode process forks. That's a fork system call. Our driver handles that system call, and then we create the new thread, and we do all the right, based on the fork flags, we do whatever the user specified for the address space, and then the new thing continues on, and then there you have two processes or two threads now, and.
But I can't go and run Notepad because I'm not running running Windows.
Right, exactly.
And arguably, some people were kind of again complaining because they're just learning. They're not necessarily uppercase C complaining yet, but they're like, well, wait a second, I want to run Notepad. Well, then you should use Cygwin.
Then you should use Cygwin. Yeah, exactly.
And then so you may have a couple of different bashes. You might even want to come up with a way to share your bash RC. There's going to be lots of cool creative things we're going to see, sharing prompts and doing all sorts of creative things with prompts.
We expect the community to be very creative about all this and to let us know what they're doing. And like I said, we love to see it.
Very cool. So here's a great one. What's the whole root access situation? Like, how does that tie to the Windows permission system? If I go into the wormhole and go /mount/c and look at, is everything just schmod everything?
So when you run bash, you will have you will be signed in as an NT user, and you will have the same permissions that NT user has.
Okay.
So running root or not, you're not going to be able to break out of what that NT user has. So if you launch bash in the admin mode, you will be able to do things that you can do on the command line in admin mode. If you launch bash not in admin, you won't. When you are running within the Ubuntu environment, when you are root, you will have everything that you can do in Ubuntu as root. And
so while you're talking, go ahead and bring me up on the big screen here and show my computer here. So I've got myself, and you can see right there it says root at localhost. I'm running as admin at this point. Right now I am root. So if I'm on /mount/c, I can delete with abandon. rm-f, it could cause me a great deal of trouble.
Just like you could normally at a command prompt, yes.
Which is the exact same thing of running an admin command prompt.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. You have no more or less privileges than you have when running an admin.
And then if I go LL here, it's like free for all because I'm in the world of NTFS.
Yes.
So NTFS, we're not trying to do any kind of weird syncing between NTFS and making the file system NTFS permissions bubble up.
No,
I would say that's one of the most elegant things I've found about this. When you think about Linux in a virtual machine, or Linux in a container, or any other sort of way of obtaining a shell in Ubuntu or Linux in a Windows environment, you're very separate from your environment on Windows, and vice versa. But what you have here is full access to your Windows file system from Ubuntu, and then full access to that Ubuntu file system if you're in Windows Explorer.
It's the similar kind of thing you would have to use like a network share for before. Now you just get access to those drives.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Here's a great one. Can I restore the Linux file system without torching everything? How do I say oops and then undo it all?
At that particular point, we have basically an uninstall. We don't really have a good way of going out and doing that just yet.
This will be in the docs somewhere in the future?
Yeah, this will be in the docs. Yes. Read the
So,
docs.
yes,
they'll
there'll be a
explain
way to kind of reset from fresh.
Yes.
I've had to do a few times.
TBD, but yes, the intent is to have something like that.
it. The intent is to have something like that, definitely.
Okay. So here's a great question. Where is it really stored, though? Can I go and find the hidden file called linux.linux and point at the thing? Like, where am I here?
So you can bring it up.
So here I am on my machine, and what's the file system command that you do on Linux? It's like fs.
Mount? What do
No, I
you
want
want?
to see the file system. I want to tell me what the file system is, like fsutil or whatever. What's the thing that
ls
GS?
slash? What do you?
I want to say? Like, tell me about my disks.
Oh, fdisk. That's not going to work.
Not fdisk.
F is probably one. Well,
Like not the fdisk.
So-
File system. Is that it? I want to know
Actually,
about my partition.
Type
The
mount.
I-
I think mount is
Type of mount.
the interesting one. Right?
Okay.
So you
Oh,
gotta
there
re-
you go. So there's my root file system on / type root file system.
so it's not really going to know. I'm assuming the question at this particular point is, could I
So
open
now
up,
on Windows, where is it?
yeah, open up File Explorer. So this would be users, your alias.
Oh, so it's user based.
It's user-based, yes.
But it's
So
user-
so each user will have their own separate
Okay.
Ubuntu environment.
So where am I
Correct.
going?
Very true. Yes. Each user will have its own separate their own separate Ubuntu environment.
So user Scott local.
Users got
App data?
app
App
data,
data,
app data, local, and then
LXSS.
LXSS. There you go.
root.
So root,
Yeah.
that's actually the home directory for the
That's
root user.
that's
Yeah, that's the home
Tilde.
directory for the yes.
Yeah, that's tilde. If you go one level up, there's a hidden folder in there that has the root file system. It's called.
okay, so where is it? It's in there
You would
somewhere.
actually have to be able to see system files. You'd have to go into properties and open up system
Oh, I got to
files.
do that whole thing.
Yeah.
So there's a hidden folder
Right.
in there.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so there's your answer.
Right.
So what's the clipboard scenario? Because I've always done VNC and done clipboard sharing, all kind of stuff like that. The only clipboard is the console, isn't it?
That is true. So
Right.
clipboard works. For every time I've used this, it's worked as expected. It's
Exactly.
whatever's
Highlight some
inside.
text. Yeah.
Clipboard. Go over here.
Copy, paste, you're done. Between
Yep.
environments, everything is Windows, so the clipboard is just the Windows clipboard.
Yep, there's the clipboard. Great. Hey, with Bash on Windows, we'll be able to use compiler tools like GCC.
Yes. Actually,
Why not?
Do you
Absolutely.
have a C file you can compile? And
We can write a hello world
Yeah,
if
hello
you'd
world.
like.
Yeah.
Well, I got to
so-
go and apt-get,
Let's build
apt-get
build
install.
apt install.
this one takes a
Apt
moment.
install, is that,
Just apt install GCC.
I don't say apt-get, am I old? Is that like, does that date
Yeah,
me?
that's the
You
old
can
way
run
of
app,
doing it.
yeah.
Does it do the same thing?
So I actually have a Channel 9 video
Good
up
info.
where you can see me go out and actually run GCC over a Hello World app. It works as you would expect.
right.
It
And when
works
you're-
as you expect.
Well, when you're
That well.
compiling it, you're not compiling a Windows binary. You're actually compiling a Linux binary, an ELF binary.
An ELF binary.
Right. So it's conceptually you can think of it like you would a VM. It's not a VM, but when you're running a different OS essentially.
It is.
than
You
would.
are in another universe right
Right.
here. You're not going to be running. Now, you might want to be running around on the C drive if you want to run Emacs. When you use Emacs as your editor and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the first scenarios, and we talked about this a number of months ago when we were working this stuff out, is Rails. I've always struggled to get Ruby and Rails to work on Windows. They try. There's been some amazing open source work around the Ruby installer and the Rails installer on Windows, but it just never quite works the way it works on Mac and Ubuntu. I put it on here and it just worked, and I was running Sinatra apps immediately with minimal effort.
So just full disclosure, we have had a lot of gyms that haven't installed quite correctly. That's just, there's a large area to cover with syscalls. We are trying to get them all, and
Is syscalls a thing where there's like X hundred of them or X dozens
Yeah,
of
there's
them?
350 or so.
Yeah,
and
350 roughly.
Yeah, and a lot
Yeah.
of them are not used. So
Until they're totally used.
Exactly. So how we've kind of gone about things is we implement what it takes to boot, to launch a process, and then we run some scenarios that we think are interesting. Like we try Git and we try GCC and things like that.
Yeah, I just
And-
apt installed.
GCC.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself with my apt-get. There's GCC, and I go and do that. Now, can I run an SSH server and then putty over and use another alternate terminal, or I could use Bitvice or something like that? I mean, like, these are all weird scenarios people want to know. Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this?
I find
Try
it kind of
and see.
amazing. You don't need putty. You can
Right.
SSH
The
directly
SSH
from
client is actually
Yeah.
one of my favorite things.
SSH just works.
SSH because it's Ubuntu.
Yes, so SSH client works. The SSH server we've played a little bit with.
Right.
Need to play a little bit more. It's got a few issues, but it is functional.
What will we find under dev? That's what you find under dev. I like just answering questions like that.
Yeah,
Go ahead and put
that's-
that.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
Rod Vengali said, what do you find under dev? That stuff right there.
Right.
And it's in color too.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if you look in proc as well, you'll see entries for each process.
Yeah.
and-
It's fun to cat proc CPU info.
Right. So that's telling you information about the processors you're on.
And this is significant. It's not the virtual machine processor as I know it. It's not a virtual machine.
No.
That's my
It is
computer.
your
That
computer,
is my
right.
computer. So that brings me to the next question. What's the performance scenario, right? I mean, it's like running on the metal.
So you can run Sysbench, and I ran Sysbench on the CPU, and
Yep.
it took 9.3 seconds to run under Windows Subsystem for Linux, and it took 9.3 seconds to run on my ThinkPad rebooted into Ubuntu.
So Sysbench.
Sysbench space -- test equals CPU space
I've
run.
never actually run this.
yeah.
There's
I love that we're doing this. Like,
This is kind of a
like
terrifying
there,
demo.
like there was a script. There's no script.
No, there's no
We
script.
have no
No,
idea what's
none
going
whatsoever.
on.
to give that. I don't know. I've got an i7.
I've
It takes me
I've got
9.3
there you go,
seconds.
9.9 seconds.
9.9.
I want to do it again.
9.9.
My
Yeah.
ThinkPad's way faster.
Well, my ThinkPad's on battery.
yeah.
So performance is pretty good. We're working on performance. There are some areas that are faster than others. We've been playing a lot with like file system access and stuff like that. So some areas are much faster than other areas, but
Yeah.
it's getting better.
Yeah,
We
we've
run VI.
Pound include.
I can. What's that?
Standard I/O.
Oh, you want to do that? Are we really doing that? Are we really doing this?
Print out.
We can, yeah.
I'm going to let you do that because I will probably not be able to exit VI. So how much space does that base image take up? Are we talking gigs or hundreds of megs?
Hundreds of megs.
in the hundreds of meg space.
Hundreds of
Yeah.
megs.
So this is not the dedicate X tens of gigs like you do in a virtual machine.
No, not by any stretch. Not by any
Now,
stretch.
is this meant to replace virtual machines, or this is a developer scenario?
This
and
is-
when you run your actual workload, you do it either on the metal or
So,
in a VM.
as we spoke in the beginning, there's that continuum of work. There's Segwit on one side, there's VM on the other. This does not replace VMs by any stretch of the imagination. VMs still have a very strong place. VMs are still very useful in a lot of ways.
No, I think it's great. See if you can do it in the first try. Are you going to write it all over?
Oh, we're writing Hello World live.
We
That's
are
great.
writing Hello World Live.
It's been many, many years. Now, on Windows, of course, Hello World in C is about 93 lines.
About.
It's a little bit longer
About.
if you want to make a window.
This one-
So, Gil Mendez says, can I have direct access to hardware and do things like that?
That is not part of our scenario. Like I said, the
Not
scenario
what the goal is.
not the goal right now. Like I said, the scenarios that we're starting with are we are trying to give people a familiar Bash environment, and after that, we will see.
I'm going to do a dramatic zoom just for people to. I also want to point out that that is not Consolis or Lucida Console. That is, in fact, Ubuntu Mono.
Type
Oh, yeah, you-
type file space a.out. We should
Yeah.
see that it's an ELF executable.
There we go.
64-bit.
64-bit
So this is a 64-bit scenario. I don't do this on my x86 machines.
Yes.
Okay. What's the sudo story?
What's the pseudo story?
Super
So-
user do what?
So when you first get the build, everybody's going to be root. We are going to be adding user access very shortly after that.
Yep.
After that one, you will be able to sudo to use commands. You will be a
User add and all that.
user add, all that other goodness.
No mirroring though. User add is its own thing because it's
Use-
a different file system.
Exactly. And since you are running inside of everybody's running inside of their own user context, you can add whatever users you want. Those will be your users,
Ubuntu users that are unrelated to my other.
unrelated to the end user. Correct.
Very cool. Will Windows be able to then read external hard disks that are formatted with ext2 or 3?
Never tried.
If I plugged in,
That's a good question. I,
a great
I don't
question.
think we've tried that, but
so we should find out like
if
a USB T.
if NT supports
plug
it,
it in. But then the question is, how does that relationship happen?
If it shows up as a D drive, it'll be under mount.
It would just show up
Yeah.
under mount. So
if it shows up in Windows File
If
Explorer,
Windows,
it'll
okay, so this
show
is
up.
again, it underscores the point that if Windows sees it, the underlying system sees it.
it should, yes.
So then the question would be, if Windows sees it as a disk partition, that's step one, then does Ubuntu see it as a file system? I wonder if you could get in a scenario where the Explorer could see it but couldn't open it, but Ubuntu could open it.
That
We gotta
would be
try that.
really interesting.
That'd
We
be
would have to try
super,
that one.
super cool.
I
We
do
will
not
try
know.
that and check it out. What about Python?
Yes.
Apt install Python.
Yep.
Next question.
Actually, Python's part of the base install. So type
Oh.
Python, you're in a
Then
Python
type
shell,
Python.
print hi, and you're running Python.
Yeah.
Sweet. What about case sensitivity, char sets and classes, or slashes rather? I can say some interesting stuff that happens as a .NET developer who's trying to do this kind of stuff. I was setting up some ASP.NET code on Windows, ran it on Windows, it worked great, moved it over to run in Ubuntu under the .NET Core. Remember that Windows file system is case preserving, but case insensitive. I ended up with an uppercase index.html and a lowercase index.html and got in all sorts of trouble, and then ended up having to go into Git and go git move -f and kind of work that stuff out. So you do bump into some case sensitivity issues, but what was interesting about it is that Windows acted no differently than Windows usually acts.
Correct.
And same with Ubuntu, it acted as it should, case preserving and case sensitive. So I just dealt with that and it worked exactly as I thought it would.
Yes.
It made me happy. And then, of course, you mentioned this before, X servers and things like that, having Ubuntu desktop. This is not the scenario that you
That
should
is not the
accomplish.
scenario that we're going after. We are simply doing command line developer tools. We are trying to make sure that this is something that people can play with.
And then I
on the
want to
command
just
line.
zoom in here on the desktop here, and you see that I've just got, go ahead and take a look at my laptop. I've got the command prompt, I've got PowerShell, and then I've got Bash on Ubuntu right there. And when we say that it's fast, I mean it starts up just like
Right,
that.
yeah.
And it's also worth pointing out, I'm going to talk a little bit about this in my talk a little bit later tomorrow, is that there's been a number of improvements in a thing called ConHost, which is the thing that make consoles work.
Yeah, so ConHost actually powers kind of the underlying shell experience of DOS or of the command prompt of PowerShell and of Bash. I know that team has been doing a lot of work in order to make sure that the VT100 support is there, that we can actually have things like VI working.
And that's
so-
significant because here on a Windows machine, go ahead and pop back here, I can go and hit Alt-Enter on full screen, I can type Emacs, and it works and behaves as it should.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
And that really has to do with the console team that's been working on that.
Absolutely. And I don't know how to exit Emacs, so then I'll just close the process.
That exits Emacs.
Yeah, which is way easier than rebooting, which is what I usually do on a boot. Let's see, we got a couple more questions here, and oh, here we go. There's a blog post soon on building apps for Windows. It can be a deeper dive into all the technical stuff. I hope that the people that are watching really listen to these answers. You guys have been completely transparent about this.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any more speculation about what the value is that this provides. It's extremely clear to me as a developer. And I feel like I finally have the ultimate developer laptop. Not to be a fanboy or anything, but I'm pretty excited. Great question from Kate here. How many people are working on Bash?
Yeah, so the kernel team is.
Yeah, so we have the kernel team that's working on it. The kernel team is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 developers that are currently going out there and doing it. Then we also have the people over in Kevin Gallo's org, the DEP team, that are doing a lot of the console host and helping us out a lot with the user mode and stuff along those lines. I'm not sure exactly how many people are running on there. We have 3 people running on that one.
And when I turn this on, I mean, do I get this when I get Windows out of the box, or do I have to actually ask for it and say I'm a developer, trying to be in developer mode?
There will be an install process. You do have to be in developer mode. You will have to go out and turn on an optional component for this one.
Okay.
When we do release, we will have MSDN documentations on how to run the installation, all that other goodness. Definitely recommend that people go out and read them.
And I know that in the past, where is developer mode?
It's in the
it's-
settings.
yep.
Yeah.
For
There we
developers,
go.
right there.
So I've gone here in my machine, and this is where you go when you're doing Universal Store work, you're doing Windows stores. You can say,
Nope.
my non-technical
Wrapping it up.
my non-technical family member says store apps. You say developer mode. You go and be a developer and have all sorts of fun. Right. Thank you so much, Dustin from Canonical.
Hey,
Appreciate
thanks, Scott.
hanging out. Russ,
Scott.
good looking out. Ben, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
We'll see you later. We're having all sorts of fun here at Build 2016.